Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to use Postman to test our IOTDM. Postman is a very powerful tool that you can send RESTful requests to certain places. If you are not very familiar with Postman, I've found a very good video. It is an introduction video, how to install and how to use Postman. So you just need to click the link and there you would see a video about Postman. So let's move on. So after you install Postman, or you are very familiar with Postman, you know that there is a import button that you can import certain collections. We have created a certain collections of our IOTDM. You just need to import that collection, then you can test it one by one. So there is a link that you can import via link, or there is a button. You just need to click the button, then assume that you install the Chrome app about Postman, then you click import button, then you will see collection basic IOTDM CRUD test imported. Then you will see the collections that we created for you to test our IOTDM. Also, you can import via link here, import from link. You can enter the link here. Then you click import. Then you will also see collections like this. So let's continue to test our IOTDM. First, you need to run IOTDM on your own machine or on a remote server. So I will run my IOTDM on my local machine. Once you see an image like this, it means that your IOTDM is running. Then back to Postman. The first step is to provision the CSE. The provision process is a little different from other process because the CSE is provisioned via RESTful port 8181, while other operations is via port 8282. They are HTTP request. The CSE provision port is a RESTconf process. So it contains several headers, and the authorization here, it is like a password and username. This is admin and admin for the username and password. Also, there is a body here. This body means that you provision an CSE named CSE1, and then let me send the request here. If you see a response like this, it means that you have successfully provisioned an CSE named in CSE1. And at the same time, you will get a default access control policy named default ACP. You will see some detailed example about default access control policy later. So after you provision the CSE, then you can retrieve it via HTTP port 8282. Then the response like this shows that you have successfully provisioned in CSE and you can retrieve that. This section is a supported resource type. So currently we support several resource type like resource AE, resource container, resource content instance, resource subscription, and access control policy, group, node. We support like this. We have created the headers for you, but you can change that if you want. The origin part is very important about who you are and where you send the information. So this section is related with access control policy. We will use that to test the access control policy function later. And this is a default access control policy in your CSE. You see that the default access control policy allows anyone to do any operation. But if you want to change this default access control policy, you will need to set the origin part to admin, like in the header, like here. You will need to set the origin part to admin so that you can modify the default access control policy. Now let's move on to AE part. AE, the body is a little different. You have to contain several attributes. They are mandatory. You can find all the information about each resource in TS0001 in WAM2M official document. So this payload means that we want to create an AE that API is test app ID, app name is test app name, and resource name is test AE. This resource name will be in the parse in the future, so we can retrieve that AE. So we create an AE, and in the headers you will see the HTTP headers. So we can retrieve that. Here you see that this is the AE we just created, and test AE is in the name part, test AE. And we can also update AE, then delete that. After we delete the AE, we cannot delete that again because it is deleted. So the container is similar to AE, and just the attributes, their attributes is a little different. And container, you can also create container under AE or under container or under just under CSE base. So here we will create a container under CSE. Retrieve that, update, delete. So next, content instance. Content instance is a little different because we cannot create a content instance under content instance, or you can imagine the content instance like a child resource of container. We basically store the most important information inside content instance. Also, you cannot create content instance under AE. You can only create it under a container. So we have to create a container for our content instance test. Now we create our content instance under that test container. And in the headers, oh, I forgot to mention that the content type must be the same of your resource type. So here we want to create a content instance, and content instance resource type is 4, so you must contain the ty4 here. Also similar to create container. Container resource type is 3, you have to put ty equals 3 here. And the body, the con attribute is the place that we store the information. And we create a content instance named scene1, so we can retrieve that later. You don't have to put a resource name for each resource. The system will generate a default one for you. But if you want to retrieve that in the test, you have to name it, because we create the test for you. But if you create a resource without resource name, the response payload will tell you the resource name you just created, so that you can also retrieve that by yourself. Retrieve that, delete that. Now we can also discover all the resource of CSE. Since we just delete that, we can recreate them. Create AE, create a container, create content instance. So since we will discover that later with the label attribute, so we create a content instance that label with key 1. The label is array, so you have to put an array mark here. You can put several labels here. Then we discover resource with label equal key 1. Then we will retrieve that content instance we just created here. So this function can find any resource under the CSE1, not only directly under CSE1, it can be the descendants of this in CSE1. And we can also limit the response to 2 resources. So they will return only 2 resources. One is CSE and the other is default access control policy. If you put 3 here, then we can get more resource. Here we retrieve another resource. And we can also create a subscription. The subscription is very important if you want to test the digilux function. So we will send notification according to the subscription. Who subscribe to certain resource, then this resource updated, then we will send, the IOTDM will send notification to the subscriber. So this is a subscriber UI. The access control policy is a resource that can control who can do what. If you create a resource, so first you have to create an access control policy resource. Then you can, the access control policy ID. Then you can create a container with that access control policy. For example, you can put the ACPI here. Then if the ACPI does not allow you to create a content instance, you will be rejected. I will create another collection just for test access control policy. The group resource, you can create several, you can put several resources inside one single group. Currently, we use group inside the access control policy. So for example, if you put a group in the access control policy's originator, that means only this group can do several operations, such as only this group can create a container under this AE. Then there is a node resource. All these CRUD functions are very similar, but the function behind the resource, we try our best to follow the 1M2M documentation. And the postman, I want to tell you something about postman. So postman, you can put all the collections into the cloud once you log in to your own personal account. Then when you switch to another computer, the collection is still there. And there is a new function called runner. So here, if you click the test, then you can test itself automatically. You will see all the information. So 200 means that it's successfully created or deleted. Since we don't delete the AE, there is a conflict. And you can test all the 20s tests in just one click. So if you change the IOTDM or we update our IOTDM, we can use Postman to test it very simply. And test again. So now all is 200. Very easy. And also you can download the previous test report. Also you can import the test report. Very easy to use. You can see the history you just created or you just deleted something. So this is how to use Postman tutorial video. Thank you all.